Alice stood up from her chair and looked around the living room of the large two-story cottage. There was a time she thought this house was her dream come true, spacious, beautiful, with a well-kept garden. Now it felt more like a cage she couldn't escape. She sighed heavily, walked over to the window, and wiped the windowsill with a damp cloth. The cottage demanded constant care: 2 floors, 5 rooms, a big kitchen. Try keeping that clean with 2 teenagers and 3 adults, only one of whom acted like a grown-up. Alice glanced toward her father-in-law's room. Franz had been sick for 3 years. Ever since the car accident, he barely managed to move around the house, but he still tried to keep his spirits up. He was the only reason she was still here, enduring, staying silent. "God, give me strength," Alice whispered as she caught a familiar sight through the window. In the garden gazebo, wrapped in overgrown grapevines, a cheerful little party was going on. Her husband Klaus and her mother-in-law Greta. A half-empty wine bottle sat on the table, and judging by their flushed faces, it wasn't the first. Alice headed outside with purpose. She slammed the door just loud enough to get their attention, but the drunk pair didn't even flinch. Greta's loud laugh pierced her ears. "Here we go again." Alice stood with her hands on her hips. "Aren't you ashamed? The kids will be back from their friends any minute." Klaus turned his head lazily. "Oh, here we go. Come on, sweetheart, leave us alone. We're on vacation. We're allowed to relax." Vacation? This so-called vacation has been going on for months. "Greta, come on, he's a lost cause, but you? You're a woman. Can't you help out? The garden's completely overgrown." Greta scoffed. "As if I care. You're the young one, go dig in the dirt if you want. Klaus and I are enjoying some culture." "Culture?" Alice felt her frustration rising. "You call day drinking culture? Who's taking care of Franz? Who's cooking? Who's helping the kids with schoolwork?" "Oh, give it a rest," Klaus waved dismissively. "Go do something useful." Alice turned and marched toward the garden beds. She didn't want them to see her tears. Grabbing a hoe, she threw herself into the weeds, trying to drown her pain and work. "If only I could leave. Go back to my mother's village. Start fresh." The thought spun in her head. But what about Franz? Who'll take care of him? Those two only know how to drink and gossip. She shot a side glance at the gazebo. Klaus and Greta were already opening another bottle, loudly discussing the latest gossip. Alice remembered how Klaus used to be funny, caring, romantic. How he dreamed of a big family. Who would have thought he'd turn into a mama's boy, catering to Greta's every whim? "I can't take this anymore," she thought, wiping sweat from her forehead. The sun beat down harder, and there was still a lot to do in the garden. But she knew no one would lift a finger to help. To them, it was all a waste of time. They were city folks, after all. What did they care about growing vegetables? Who cared that the kids loved fresh produce from the garden, or that Franz needed his favorite parsley? No one. A soft tapping from above caught her attention. Alice looked up. Franz was waving from his window. It was time to make lunch and help him out. She stuck the hoe into the soil and headed back toward the house, careful not to glance at the gazebo, where more drunken laughter echoed. For him. Only for him do I put up with all this, she told herself, climbing the steps. Inside, she went straight to the kitchen. Her hands instinctively reached for the soup pot. Franz liked his meals on time. She tried not to think about what was happening outside, but the tears still found their way into the bowl. "Alice," came Franz's soft voice, "are you there?" "Coming," she called back, quickly wiping her eyes on her apron. When she walked into Franz's room with the tray, he looked at her red, puffy face and said gently, "Sit down, dear. We need to talk." Something in his voice made her pause. She set the tray on the side table and sat down next to his bed. "I heard everything," Franz sighed. "The shouting. That drunken laughter. What a mess we've come to. My son turned out just like his mother. I hoped he'd change. But no. Alice said nothing, nervously fidgeting with the hem of her apron. What's there to say? It's all obvious. You know, dear, I'm not blind, the old man continued. I see how you suffer. I know you'd have left long ago if it weren't for me, this old burden. Don't say that, Alice gasped. You're not a burden. You're more of a father to me than my real one ever was. That's exactly why I've decided something. Franz tried to sit up straighter. I built this house with my own hands, every brick. Thought I'd leave it to my son, to the grandkids. But now? They'll drink it all away, house, land, everything. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Alice waited silently, sensing something important was coming. So, I've decided to put the house in your name, he said firmly. Make you the rightful owner. What? Alice jumped up, shocked. No, I can't. What will people say? What about Klaus? What about him? Franz cut her off. He brought this on himself. I see how you care for the kids, how you keep the household running. And them? They just drink and mess around. No, dear, my mind's made up. I want to die knowing the house is in safe hands. Franz, no. Alice dropped to her knees beside the bed. Don't talk like that. You'll live, you'll see. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. That's up to God. The old man gently stroked her hair. But my decision is final. I'm doing it for the grandkids. They'll need a roof over their heads, not a drunk father and a bitter grandma. Alice sat in silence, taking in what she had just heard. Deep down, she knew her father-in-law was right. But the thought of such a huge change was terrifying. I know you'd never hurt anyone, Franz continued, and it's time you stopped letting them walk all over you. It's painful to watch them treat you like this. Drunken laughter rang out again from outside. Alice flinched, and Franz winced. That's exactly what I mean. So don't argue with me. We're going to the notary tomorrow. But how? No buts, he said firmly, more firmly than she'd heard in years. It's decided. Now hand me that soup before it gets cold. Alice passed him the bowl automatically, still trying to process what was happening. Was this really real? Could things actually change? She looked at Franz, now calmly eating his lunch like it was any other day, and suddenly felt a warmth bloom in her chest. This man, her only true protector for so many years, was standing up for her once again. Maybe now she finally had a chance to take her life back. The next morning, Alice woke up earlier than usual. When she casually announced over breakfast that she was taking Franz out shopping, the reaction was explosive. What for? Greta snapped, tugging at her bathrobe. I can take him. You stay home and do the chores. Yeah, me too, Klaus chimed in, eyeing her suspiciously. What's the rush all of a sudden? Franz grabbed his cane and headed straight for the door. Alice is driving. That's final. I'm sure your hangovers will appreciate the break. Stay home. Greta huffed in offense, and Klaus just turned away, unable to come up with a comeback. Alice helped Franz into the car in silence, trying to stay calm despite her racing heart. They didn't speak the entire drive to the city center. Only when they parked near a small office building did Franz break the silence. Don't be nervous, sweetheart. We're doing the right thing. Chin up. The notary, a petite woman in a tailored suit, quickly prepared the documents. Alice signed everything like she was in a dream. Each stroke of the pen pulled her closer to a new life, and it made her dizzy. Congratulations, the notary said, stamping the last page. You're now the official owner of the property. And what a property it is, lucky you. On the drive back, Alice kept glancing at the folder on the back seat. Can you believe it? She chuckled. I could kick them all out now if I wanted to. Franz laughed out loud. Some people need a good wake-up call. They stayed in the city until late, picking up groceries and Franz's medications. Alice stalled as long as she could, dreading going back. But when the sun began to set, they had no choice but to return. What they saw as they pulled up left them frozen. Music was blaring down the street. Strangers with drinks crowded the yard, and where Alice's carefully tended tomato plants had been, there was now an improvised dance floor. "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at the trampled garden. "How could they?" Franz went pale. "There's your proof. Didn't take long. This is your home now. You decide what happens. And I'll back you up." A wave of fury surged through Alice. Years of humiliation, mockery, and drunken chaos flashed before her eyes. She stepped out of the car with purpose and marched straight toward the crowd. "Everybody out. Now." Her voice cut through the music like a whip. "Pack up and get out." Klaus stumbled toward her. "What's your problem?" "We're just having fun." "Fun?" Alice swept her eyes over the wrecked garden. "You can have fun somewhere else. You and your mother. Pack your things and leave. This is my house now." "What?" Greta screeched. "Your house. How dare you, you little tramp." Alice stared her down, voice ice cold. "I dare. And if you're still here in an hour, I'm calling the police. Got it? You've lost your mind." Klaus grabbed her by the shoulders. "What police? This is our home." "Not anymore," Alice said calmly, pulling the documents from her bag. "As of today, I'm the sole owner. Here, see for yourself." Greta snatched the papers, skimmed them, and turned ghost white. "Franz," she shrieked when she saw her husband slowly approaching the house. "What have you done, you old fool?" "What I should have done a long time ago," Franz replied firmly. "I've seen enough of your nonsense. It ends now." The uninvited guests, sensing the tension, began slipping away. Klaus stood between his wife and mother, not knowing what to do. "Dad, come on, you're serious? This is our house. You can't." "I can," Franz said flatly. "Now both of you, get out. Alice is right. You've got 1 hour to pack. Greta, you've got your own apartment. Go there. The both of you out." The next hour was pure chaos. Greta swung between sobbing, threatening, and begging for sympathy. Klaus trailed after Alice, pleading with her to reconsider. But she stood her ground. "You do realize I'm filing for divorce," she said quietly, when he once again begged for forgiveness. "But how?" he stammered, lost. "We have kids." "Exactly. We have kids. Did you think about them when you were drunk? When you let your mother humiliate me over and over? That's it, Klaus. I'm done." By nightfall, the house was finally quiet. Greta and her son had left for her old apartment. Alice collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Franz sat beside her and gently took her hand. "Don't worry, sweetheart. You did the right thing. We're free now." "I know. But it feels strange. After all those years of putting up with it, and now." "It was just time," Franz said with a soft smile. "Now we can start over." The grandkids were thrilled when those two packed up and left. And he was right. The kids had returned from visiting friends right in the middle of it all, and took the news surprisingly well. 14-year-old Anna even hugged her mother and whispered, "Finally, Mom. You did the right thing." The weeks that followed felt like a dream. Alice filed for divorce, cleaned up the ruined garden, and repainted the gazebo. The house felt alive again, like it could finally breathe. One evening, about a month later, she sat on the porch watching the sunset. Franz, who had been feeling much better lately, rocked beside her in his chair. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I was really nervous back then. I kept thinking, what if I'm wrong? What if I shouldn't hand over the house? And now?" Alice smiled. "Now I see I was right. You're a real head of the house, sweetheart. And the kids, they're blooming like flowers. As for those two," he waved dismissively, "let them live their lives, just not here." Alice closed her eyes. There was still a faint sting inside her, but she could feel it. Things had truly changed. She finally had peace. She could focus on the house, the kids, and caring for the father-in-law she loved. No one was going to ruin that anymore. And in the old grape-covered gazebo, there were no more drunken parties. Only quiet family tea times, the sound of kids' laughter, and calm conversations about the future.